the similarities between e-commerce and short-term rentals, it's like absolutely everything. So I started applying the exact same strategies I used when I started identifying what product to sell on Amazon. This time it was for short-term rentals. So I went on AirDNA and I started looking at the listing distribution. So first it was identifying the market, right? And I was already in Florida, so I knew anything in Florida was booming at that point. So I started looking at that market, but what I found was that there was a lot of saturation, but not for every property.
Welcome to the Real Freedom Show, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Freedom, Real Estate Leverage Freedom, where we talk about different ways that people build time and financial freedom through different opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. If you want to get started on your real estate investing journey, check out our website, freedomthroughrealestate.com. Lots of great content, articles, podcast episodes like this for you to really kind of figure out what's going to be the best path for you and what do you want to do. And one of the things that I really love about people that are finding success in real estate is they have transferable skills. They have a background that they can bring inside of real estate, bring their passions and their energy to the real estate space. And that's certainly what we've got today with our guest, Jacob Hernandez. He's a serial entrepreneur, scaled a 7-figure Amazon brand in college, has spent over $1 million on pay-per-click ads, and then successfully transitioned into short-term rentals, built a $10 million short-term rental portfolio, and now focusing on boutique hotels. Also the author of the book Short-Term Rental Secrets. You've done a lot in the few years that you've had here. You're certainly a younger guy and certainly accomplished a lot. So congrats on your success, Jacob, and excited to hear your story.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited to be here on your show today.
Well, why don't we just talk a little bit about kind of your background, getting into your Amazon business, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So basically I was in college. I was 22 years old at that time. I was going to the University of Miami. And for me, I've always wanted to have freedom of time, freedom of location. So for me, the traditional 9-to-5 job was never a thing for me. My dad worked incredibly hard all his life, but that meant I really couldn't see him much. Like weekends, he was always traveling. He was all around the world as working for a multinational, high earning guy, super hardworking. But for me, like I didn't want that. Like I didn't want to follow his footsteps after seeing how much sacrifice he had to do for his family. So for me, it was looking at like what kind of businesses I could do where I could actually leverage the internet and work from anywhere in the world. So that same summer, I'm still a freshman. I fly out to China for an internship, and I quit like 3 days into it because they were just making me serve their coffee and do all this stuff that was not related to what I had signed up for. It was actually an e-commerce based company, so I thought I was going to learn a lot from them. It didn't work out, so I ended up quitting, and I actually spent those 2 months in China just traveling around by train, checking out different cities, different marketplaces. And I landed upon Yiwu Marketplace. And that's where my mind just exploded. I was seeing how everything was being manufactured there, from scissors, gifts, like anything you could think of. It was crazy. Like they had every single reference. And this went on for miles. So like it would take you a couple days to walk through this kind of like a shopping mall filled with suppliers. And yeah, basically I come back from that internship. I just knew I had to do business with China. I knew what was there. I just needed to figure out a way how to do it. And I started going to different meetups for e-commerce and Amazon selling. And that's when I stumbled upon this really good friend of mine who became my mentor. He was a couple years older. He was already being what I was thinking was really successful. He was selling 10K a month, and he was about to quit his 9-to-5. So for me, he's like, this is the guy I want to follow. And he just started showing me the ways. From there, I paid a high-level course. I invested like $5K into a course that I had saved up for my money. And the rest is history. That year, I ended up launching a wedding gift brand, scaling it to 7 figures. And then, of course, I had all these different issues. I stumbled upon cash flow problems because I didn't really know what I was doing. I had this warehouse in Doral in Miami, and I would drive back and forth from the warehouse and to school. And I actually had virtual assistants at that point, so in the Philippines, and I would have them helping me out not only with like customer service and all this different stuff, but I also had them doing some of my schoolwork so that I could focus on scaling the business, right? So I was really going to college for my parents. They had already invested all this money into me, and like they wanted me to go to college. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to stick through it. But at that point, I didn't really need to go to school. Like I was already doing pretty well with the business. But of course, all businesses have their challenges. I started having, like I said, cash flow issues. My Chinese competitors copied my exact same products. They basically ripped apart what I was selling. And that just forced me to become really good at digital marketing, SEO, listing optimization to try and compete. However, I didn't really see this as a sustainable business venture. And that's when I started looking into real estate, more specifically short-term rentals, as a way that I could unlock both cash flow, but also being in a business where you have a tangible asset. Because the problem with what I was doing at that point, it was, just to give you an example, I had, say, 20,000 Mr. and Mrs. aprons. If Amazon suspended me, if my product got copied, if anything happened, I'm stuck with a warehouse full of aprons that have no value. When I looked at real estate, I'm like, okay, say Airbnb kicks me out of their platform, I can still live in that asset. I can long-term rent it, medium-term rent it. I can sell it. If I am stuck with 20,000 aprons, if I try and sell them on Etsy, because it's just such a smaller marketplace, like I would die before I would be able to actually liquidate all that stock. So that was kind of my transition from e-commerce into short-term rentals.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, one of the things that we talk about is it being a tangible asset, in real estate, comparing it to stocks or mutual funds or cryptocurrency, things like that, where I think a lot of people that like investing real estate like the fact that I can go touch it, right? I can go drive by that house or whatever that property is if I need to. Hadn't really thought about a tangible asset in the sense of, wedding aprons or, things like that, where, yeah, the value is just much different. And so now I will have that example to share with people when I talk about real estate being a great investment from a tangible asset standpoint.
Absolutely. And another way that you know it, that it's a real asset, is you can get a loan or a HELOC against your asset. Like I can't get anything against 20,000 aprons. Like it's just, you're not getting financing for that, right? So yeah.
Banks have hoops for you to jump through in real estate. I'd imagine it'd be a lot more for aprons. So
right.
So talk a little bit about, that journey getting into the short-term rental space, building and scaling, selecting properties, kind of some of that stuff that you've learned along the way.
Yeah. So basically I started applying. It's crazy because the similarities between e-commerce and short-term rentals, it's like absolutely everything. So I started applying the exact same strategies I used when I started identifying what product to sell on Amazon. This time it was for short-term rentals. So I went on AirDNA and I started looking at the listing distribution. So first it was identifying the market, right? And I was already in Florida, so I knew anything in Florida was booming at that point. So I started looking at that market, but what I found was that there was a lot of saturation, but not for every property type. So it's not only identifying the right market, but also identifying the right property for that market. And what I found was that anything above 5 bedrooms plus, there was only 2% of all the listings. Yet these big properties that allowed you to host 16 plus guests had huge demand. And I started looking at comparable properties that were doing $300,000 to $500,000 a year, right? So from there, I validated the thesis that limited supply. It was also really hard to find these 6-bedroom properties. And then from there, I went on to purchasing. So I had saved up some money for my e-com business. I was already trying to sell this business, which later I successfully sold. And again, that same mentor was now a business partner in this venture. So we acquired our first property. It was a 6-bedroom property with a pool, a garage that we could convert into a game room. What we basically focused on was this thesis of creating mini resorts. So after that first property, our second property was actually waterfront, not oceanfront, lakefront, because oceanfront would be millions of dollars. It could be $2-3 million. We could charge just as much for a property that was lakefront than an oceanfront, but our basis was just so much lower that our returns were incredible. So our thesis, just to sum that up, is it was 6-bedroom properties, garage that we would convert into a game room, lots of space so that we could add amenities, backyard with a lakefront, pool, and then space to add a fake beach. We would add a volleyball court. We would add mini golf. We would add an outdoor sauna. We would add a cinema. we would add it. We would just deck out these properties, and we just found massive success. So all our properties were 90% plus occupied. Our ADRs were 900, 1,000, 1,200 bucks per property. And yeah, that was our experience with short-term rentals. We also applied the exact same digital marketing principles, which that's pillar number 3. So number 1, it's the right market. Number 2, it's the right property. Number 3 is marketing. And that's where a lot of people get hang up on, is like they just throw the property on Airbnb and are just praying for it to get booked. But if you don't know how to talk to the algorithm, then you're not going to get the visibility that you need. So from there, we basically had a launch strategy. We would leverage influencers to stay at our properties, and then they would ask their audience to go onto Airbnb, wish list our property, and contact the host. This would give Airbnb massive signals from the get-go that there was so many people trying to book, which wasn't the reality, but it gives the algorithm, it feeds the algorithm what it wants, and that would boost us to page number 1. From there, since we had a really optimized listing with a really great main image, really good price, and title, then the organic the flywheel of organic bookings start flowing in. And then from there, the rest is just history. You start getting more reviews. You do proper revenue management, which that's pillar number 4, is obviously you need the right operations in place, cleaning the fundamentals, but also revenue management, which I think not a lot of people talk about, but it's having the automated repricing tool like Price Labs. But on top of that, you want to manually be changing those prices, because sometimes what ends up happening is you can either have an overbooked calendar or an underbooked calendar. So sometimes you might be leaving money on the table. Other times you might not have that occupancy that you want. So we manually will override whatever Price Lab is giving us based on our 7, 14, 30, 60, and 90-day occupancy. So lots of data. I can really say e-commerce was the basis to really building out this short-term rental business.
Just to back up a little bit, you had talked about, finding this niche here in 6-bedroom plus. What are the types of folks that are going there for 6-bedroom? Because like you said, it's about finding that right mix. I'm in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have some short-term rentals. A lot of it's coming to Mall of America, but there's also visiting friends and family, that sort of stuff. You've got a summer season, a winter season. Minnesota's just totally different.
Yep.
But talk about, for people looking in those types of areas, like what are they looking for, and why is that 6-bedroom thing so lucrative?
Lots of bachelorettes. It's Miami after all. So lots of bachelorettes, but lots of people coming to, say, weddings. So family members trying to get a property where they can all be close to each other. Funerals happen as well, and families travel from all around. So there's just so many different groups. There's also business groups that will stay at our properties. They're coming for work, and they all just stay at a house, all of them together. And they have everything, all the amenities plus space to work. So, I mean, it's always been different. The good thing about a market like South Florida is that there's just so many people coming in that it's, if you have a good property, and you don't have too much competition, you're going to get booked.
That was the thing surprising to me. We've got a handful of short-term rentals. Like, people come for all sorts of reasons. Like you mentioned, funerals, that stuff happens. It's last-minute funerals. It's funerals a month or 2 from now. It's, college graduations. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why people travel. And I think people probably have a limited mindset of thinking, well, why do people book an Airbnb? It's pretty much anything, and for somebody like me in my shoes, we've got 3 kids. Booking a hotel room can't fit 5 people well, because you've got, the 2 bedrooms, and then you've got the pull-out couch. Well, as our kids get older, the pull-out couch is a lot less exciting. They used to fight over sleeping on the pull-out couch. Right. But now it's like, I don't want that. So an Airbnb, just for going to stay somewhere, makes a lot more sense, because you just have more space and you have the bedrooms that you want. So even something as simple as that is important for people to book an Airbnb versus hotels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you got your own private amenities as well. And when they end up doing the math per bedroom, they end up probably spending less than they would if 16 people were to book, say, 6 or 7 different hotel bedrooms. They're going to be saving money. So it's good for us, good for the guests as well.
So talk about scaling that up, and then kind of your journey moving towards, looking at boutique hotels.
Yeah. So we ended up scaling, and then that's when the issues start coming in. We had properties all across, spread out, say 30, 20 minutes apart. So our maintenance guy, if there was check-ins on the same day, our maintenance guy couldn't be on both properties at the same time. We didn't really have like a centralized place. And it was just so expensive. There was no really real economies of scale. It was hard to scale finding these 6-bedroom properties. And we were limiting ourselves to this radius because like we couldn't go and buy in another market because now we had to set up a new team, and now you only have one property. You don't have the economies of scale to set up a property manager, a maintenance guy, a cleaner. You need to pay them by the hour or per project. So it just became a complete hassle. When you have 10, 12 properties, now you have 12 pools to take care of. They all have different maintenance issues, different pool heater. You need to cut the grass in all of them in different dates and different schedules. And it just became a nightmare to scale. So I ended up exiting that. A private equity company came in and acquired the whole portfolio. And at that point, I was starting to look into boutique hotels, AKA I call them commercial Airbnbs because that's all they are. They run pretty much on the same systems, but they have the economies of scale. So we can go in any market because what we're looking for is hotels that when we project them, we can at least do 500 to 700K a year in revenue. With that sort of revenue, we're able to basically hire a property manager. We're basically able to hire everybody on site. So we're not really buying a job, and there's the economies of scale to have just a bigger, more scalable business, and we can buy in any market. Another limitation of residential is that you can't force appreciation. So when you go to sell, unless you find the right investor, if it's your regular investor wanting to buy your property, when they go to the bank's not going to appraise the value of the asset based on the income. It's going to take the asset and look at comparable properties, which adds a huge limitation. I don't ever want to be in a business where I'm tied to just the market going up. I want to be able to force appreciation. The good thing with boutique hotels is that your value is tied to the income. So you buy an asset that's cash flowing $100,000 in net operating income. If that market's cap rate's 10%, that asset's worth $1 million. You take that asset, improve operations, renovate it, add revenue management, digital marketing, which a lot of these hotels or motels are owned by baby boomers. They might not even have an online website. So you're able to double or triple the net operating income, which means you double or triple the value within, say, 2 years, right? And then you can cash out, refi, sell. So it gives you just a lot more flexibility, a lot more growth, and a lot more scale. And then finally, regulations. If you look across the board, they're starting to regulate Airbnbs heavily in a lot of places. So I want to be in the side of the law, and I want to actually take advantage of regulations and not be the one hurting because of regulations. We had one property that we owned where the county just came back and said, you can't have 16 guests. You can have maximum of 8 people. Out of nowhere. Now our property bookings and revenue slashed in pretty much half because we can't charge as much as we can charge for bigger groups. So, I mean, it just makes a lot more sense from everything I've been doing that this was just the next step in just this whole puzzle.
So now, size-wise, you had mentioned kind of the revenue you're looking for, but is this you're looking for motels where they have exterior entrances so you can put keypads on doors, or kind of like what are maybe some of those things that you're looking for that create a good opportunity? You mentioned the baby boomers, obviously that makes sense. They're looking to get out. But yeah, what's kind of some of those features?
Basically, we want to be able to apply the exact same strategies that we learned during our Airbnb days, which is design and amenities. And if you look at this trend nowadays, there's a lot of trends towards wellness and experiential stuff. People want Instagrammable spots, right? So what we're doing is we're finding the bones. So if we find a motel that just has this really cool looking like structure that you can renovate, and it already has a pool, but it also has a lot of grass area or space for you to add a sauna and wellness and cold plunge, and maybe you're adding a wedding venue and you're adding all these extra revenue sources like food and beverage. And at the moment, I started thinking I was going to just do like a smaller deal, but at the moment we're actually looking at a pretty large deal that we ended up finding. The owner is a baby boomer. He's willing to sell or finance this deal, right? So he's giving us excellent terms, and it's got the scale. At the moment, they're doing $1 million in revenue. We think we can easily get this to $4 or $5 million in revenue, and we're going to be taking this asset from say 5 million acquisition to over 15 million by the time we exit. You're not going to get that ever with a residential asset, like with short-term rentals, right? You're never going to see 3, 4x the value of your asset unless you hold it for 20, 30 years. But in hotels or boutique hotels, you can take a motel and triple or quadruple its value within a couple of years through force appreciation. But the thesis remains the same: cool, experiential design stuff. That's going to be different.
Yeah, and you mentioned, with the force appreciation, that's awesome. That's why I moved from small multifamily into regular multifamily, just because you get control over that, right? And that's what I often tell people is you don't have to worry about what's happening in your neighborhood or what's happening with the house next door to you, because it's all dependent on, income and expenses and what's that spread. And to your point, yeah, being able to really ratchet up the income really fast gives you an incredible opportunity that even, for us, long-term rentals, we're moving, let's say $800 a month rent to $1,100 a month rent. That's awesome. And yet at the same time, you can do that on steroids much faster than long-term tenants can. So there's an incredible opportunity there for you guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Last thing to mention is obviously you're trying to find these motels that are in prime destinations that have been mismanaged, that have no marketing, no online presence. They probably haven't been updated in years. And these boomers are just ready to hand them off to you because they've owned them for 20, 30 years. And there's a big chance they're going to be able to sell or finance. Now in residential, it's so easy for people to exit. They'll just put it on Zillow and sell it. So you don't have a lot of these opportunities to actually get a seller finance opportunity. So we're seeing a lot more opportunity to do really creative deals. And it's a win-win for both, because now the boomer has this monthly check. He's not paying taxes up front. So it's a win-win scenario, and they're business owners first. So I just find it also better to be dealing with other business owners, that sometimes residential, there's a lot of emotional attachment to their house or their primary residence. In this case, it's just business. You're selling a business to somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the reasons we love the commercial side too, because I think there's so many probably mindset roadblocks that people have about what the unknown is. And I tell people on the commercial side for multifamily, yeah, sellers are much more interested in a seller finance deal. You get on the residential side, like trying to buy a single family home with seller financing. Well, they're probably wanting to use that cash for their next house, so they're not willing to finance that. But if you're talking to somebody that owns, let's just say in this example, 5 apartment buildings, they're looking to sell one where they're more willing to take something like that on. Somebody like you, a baby boomer, they've been owning this property for years and years and years. It's 100% paid off. Like you said, they can afford to do that. They want to take some sure income every month. They're willing to handle that. With interest rates being higher, you guys can probably get a good deal on that as well. So there's so much more willingness to be open to those types of conversations, where some people, their limiting beliefs think like, oh my gosh, how can you do something like that? Well, it's a lot easier because you have a flexible seller than a bank with all their regulations.
It's like you said, a limiting belief. And I had to get over that. It's like, I'm going to buy a hotel. Like it's just a hard thing to get over it, but it's actually easier, more scalable. Obviously, you're not going to go and buy a hotel if you've never even bought a single house. So obviously buy a house, 2 houses, get the ropes of real estate, but then go commercial, because it's literally just a limiting belief that you just got to get past.
Are you looking to get started or scale in real estate investing but don't know your next step? Are you overwhelmed thinking about finding deals, analyzing deals, doing due diligence, and managing properties on top of it? Go ahead and push the easy button and invest with us. Real estate investing is what we do full time. We've done dozens of deals with hundreds of doors. We have the knowledge and experience to handpick the best deals that most investors can't find. We've got large off-market deals all the time where you can hopefully find returns and economies of scale that you just can't find on your own. The best thing is it's 100% passive to you for less capital than you put down trying to acquire a property on your own. Don't let this year go by where you don't make the leap, add to your portfolio, or you just sit in analysis by paralysis. To find out more, visit freedomthroughrealestate.com and click on invest. You can book a call and learn more there. So get to scaling your portfolio now with us by your side. Now, just for a couple of minutes here, talk about your book, Short-Term Rental Secrets. Kind of what was the reason for wanting to do that, and kind of the process for that. Would love to hear your story on it.
Yeah, so Short-Term Rental Secrets is it's just a book that I put together with all my SOPs and everything I learned throughout the years of scaling a large Airbnb portfolio. And I teach you everything I learned, basically how to identify a market, how to find the right property within that market, like we discussed. From there, how to do the right marketing. And I go deep into the Airbnb algorithm, how to talk to the algorithm, how to feed it everything at once. From there, we go over operations. And those are the 4 pillars of short-term rental success. From there, at the end of the book, I talk about why once you're ready to take the big leap, you should go into commercial Airbnbs, aka boutique hotels, and I show you how. And basically everything, the 4 pillars of short-term rentals can be applied into boutique hotels as well. So it's all just transferable skills that you can take either if you're doing residential or commercial boutique hotels.
Yeah, that's such a great thing. It's cool to see, I talked about this at the beginning of the episode, taking those transferable skills into real estate. A lot of people think like, oh, real estate, like it's new. I don't understand it. And it's like, well, what did you do well before that? What were you excited about? And what can you bring into real estate? And everybody has different skills and abilities and passions that they can bring into real estate. And it's so obvious to see your background, how it prepared you for what you're doing today.
Yep. My background was digital marketing and data, but I knew nothing about real estate. But you can learn the real estate side, or you can partner up with somebody or hire somebody that's really good at the finance part and the spreadsheets. But you can always add value. Like one of my partners right now in the boutique hotel, he's the design guy. He's the vision guy. So he's not the numbers guy. So you just look for 2 partners, a data guy, a digital marketing guy, and a design guy, and you guys go and take down bigger deals. So I love real estate because it's also a lot of networking, a lot of you're not doing this alone. Like since you're taking down bigger and bigger deals, like in commercial, now you're doing it with others, and that's something I've enjoyed a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for coming on the show, sharing your experience. For people that want to reach out to you and learn more about what you're doing, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to my website, freedomvestcapital.com. And then you can just add all my social media to the show notes, but it's my first and last name. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Excited to see what the future holds for you with boutique hotels and excited to see where it goes.